In the 1980s, a drug called crack cocaine ripped through America like a massive wildfire. It was cheap, it was instant. One hit, and the brain's pleasure center lit up like nothing before it. Dopamine flooded the reward system, euphoria hit in seconds. And then it was gone. And the only thing the brain wanted, the only thing it could think about, was more. Crack devastated communities. Families were torn apart. Heads of households became addicts. Babies were born with drug addictions they did not ask for. Incarceration for nonviolent drug offenses exploded from 50,000 in 1980 to 400,000 by 1997. And because approximately 80% of crack users were African American, it was poor black communities that bore the heaviest burden of the destruction. The government responded with mandatory minimums. 5 grams of crack carried the same sentence as 500 grams of powder cocaine. A 100-to-1 ratio. The prisons filled up. The neighborhoods emptied out. And an entire generation was broken. Here is where this episode of the Metabolic Files goes somewhere that most people are not ready to hear. What if I told you that there is a substance available in every grocery store, every supermarket, every school cafeteria, and inside every kitchen cabinet across America that activates the same exact reward centers in the brain as cocaine once did in the 80s? What if that substance was consumed by hundreds of millions of Americans every single day, including children, starting before they can even speak? What if the published science showed that this substance causes liver damage, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, cancer, and metabolic dysfunction at epidemic levels? And what if it was not only legal, but deliberately put into nearly everything we eat today by an industry whose objective is to maximize profits and addictions, and that they know exactly what they are doing and the effects it causes on overall health in America? That substance is sugar. And this is the story of a modern-day sugar smack epidemic happening in plain sight. I want to be honest with you before we go any further, because this channel is built on honesty. I grew up on sugar. Like most Americans, I did not know any better. Cereal for breakfast was sugar. Juice boxes was sugar. Sandwiches on white bread that convert to sugar. Snacks loaded with sugar. Candies, sodas, ice creams that is nothing more than liquid sugar. I ate it. I craved it. I could not stop. And like most Americans, I paid the price. Obesity, high LDL cholesterol, heart disease. My body was breaking down, and I did not connect it to the thing I had been eating 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day since childhood. That is not a confession, however, because just like you, this is the American experience. And what science says about it is not an accident. A landmark study published in the Public Library of Science on August 1st in 2007 gave laboratory rats the choice between sugar and cocaine. They could press one lever for sugar water and another lever for intravenous cocaine. 94% of the rats chose sugar. Not 50%. Not 60%. 94% sugar was chosen over cocaine. The researchers titled their paper, "Intense Sweetness Surpasses Cocaine Reward." The rats were also more willing to work for sugar than for cocaine. They pressed the lever harder and more frequently to get their sugar fix than their cocaine fix. Now think about that. In a controlled laboratory setting, published in a peer-reviewed journal, an animal that was physically addicted to cocaine chose sugar when given the option. They chose sugar. Sugar won, not cocaine. Now think about this. The exact same choice trial has never been conducted on humans, because giving people a direct, concurrent choice between intravenous cocaine and sugar water is a massive ethical violation. But when you understand the effects of sugar and the known science behind its uses, you start to understand why. And when you look at what is happening inside the human brain, you not only understand why they dared not cross that line, but you begin to understand why this was kept silent from the public, even when they had the data to prove a dangerous theory. You see, when you consume sugar, your brain releases what's known as dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure, motivation, and reward. It is the chemical that makes you feel good. It is the same chemical that is released when you experience love, orgasm, or when you accomplish a goal. When you win first place in a race, get an A on a test, and when you take a hit of cocaine. Brain scans comparing sugar consumption and cocaine use show activation in the same regions. The nucleus accumbens lights up. The ventral tegmental area fires. The prefrontal cortex responds. If you put a brain scan of someone eating a candy bar next to a brain scan of someone using cocaine, the overlap in activation is strikingly similar. The regions that light up, the chemical that is released, and the reward circuit that is triggered are the same. But it gets worse. Research published in the Journal of Neuroscience showed that after just 12 days of unrestricted sugar access, both dopamine receptors and opioid receptors in the brain become dampened. The brain is adapting. Addictions are developing. The same dose of sugar no longer produces the same pleasure responses. So, the brain demands more. More sugar. More often. Higher doses. Bigger servings. Just like any drug of abuse. This is the textbook definition of tolerance. And tolerance is the gateway to addiction. And here is where the food industry enters the story, and where this simply stops being about personal choices and starts being about something much darker. Dr. Robert Lustig is a pediatric endocrinologist and professor at the University of California, San Francisco. He has spent decades studying what sugar does to the human body, and he has published research based on his review of more than 8,000 scientific papers. His work through the Sugar Science Initiative at UCSF is one of the largest public health research efforts focused specifically on sugar. Here is what Dr. Lustig's research documents. When you consume sugar, the fructose component, which is present in both table sugar and high fructose corn syrup, is not metabolized the way glucose is. Glucose can be used by every cell in your body for energy. Fructose cannot. Fructose is metabolized almost entirely by the liver, and the liver processes fructose in almost the exact same way that it processes alcohol. Let that land for a moment. The sugar in your child's juice box is processed by their liver in almost the exact same way a shot of whiskey would be processed if they consumed that. According to Dr. Lustig, chronic fructose consumption causes fat to accumulate in the liver. Today,
Beside it,
31%
let's talk
of
about the
American adults
dopamine
suffer
effect
from
and habit
non-alcoholic fatty
formation.
liver disease,
Sugars
and 13% of children with fatty liver disease, not from alcohol, from sugar. The damage does not stop at the liver. Sugar consumption raises LDL cholesterol levels, the type of cholesterol associated with cardiovascular disease. It drives insulin resistance, which is the precursor to type 2 diabetes. It triggers chronic systemic inflammation, which is linked to cancer, autoimmune conditions, and accelerated aging. It causes metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions including high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol levels that together dramatically increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. And Dr. Lustig documented something else. Sugar dulls the hormone leptin, which is the hormone that tells your brain you are full. When leptin signaling is impaired, your brain never gets the message to stop eating. You are never satisfied. You are always hungry, always craving, always reaching for more. This is not a lack of willpower. This is a hijacked hormonal system. The sugar broke the put the plate down switch. And here is the part of this investigation that should make every parent watching this feel something they have never felt before about a bag of groceries the next time they go grocery shopping. The American Heart Association recommends that children consume no more than 3 to 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day, depending on their age. The average American child consumes roughly 17 teaspoons per day. That is 3 to 5 times the recommended limit. 3 to 5 times more sugar every single day. Children are getting 16% of their total caloric intake from added sugars alone, not from fruit, from added sugars put into their food by manufacturers motivated by a consumer society for profit. For our children, sugar is in their cereal, their granola bars, their yogurt, their bread, their peanut butter, their ketchup, their crackers, their juice, their milk, often flavored to make it more appealing, chocolate milk, strawberry milk, vanilla milk. Sugar is served in their school lunches on plastic trays 5 days a week by institutions that are supposed to be educating them. Our children did not choose this. They often don't read nutrition labels. Even most parents cannot identify the more than 56 different names sugar hides behind on ingredient labels. Terms like maltodextrin, dextrose, sucrose, barley malt, high fructose corn syrup solids, evaporated cane juice, fructose, glucose syrup, cane syrup, brown rice syrup, agave nectar, fruit juice concentrate, maltose, molasses, and invert sugar are strategically used, so the word sugar rarely has to appear at all. Most consumers think they are avoiding sugar, while food manufacturers simply disguise it under scientific, processed, or natural-sounding names that quietly flood the body every single day. Parents, the last line of defense for children. And most parents do not know what they are defending against because the information has been deliberately kept from them. Dr. Lustig has argued for years that the food industry intentionally adds sugar to processed food, not because it improves nutrition, but because it improves sales. Sugar is addictive, as we have already covered earlier. Addictive substances create repeat customers. Repeat customers create profit. The industry knew. They knew sugar lights up the same brain pathways as cocaine. They knew it suppresses leptin. They knew it would create lifelong consumers who cannot stop eating their products. And they added more. More sugar, more profits. Is this making sense now? High fructose corn syrup itself was introduced to the American food supply back in 1975. It was cheaper to produce than cane sugar. It extended shelf life. It enhanced flavor. And it was metabolized by the liver in a way that maximized fat storage and minimized satiety signaling. Within 2 decades of its introduction, obesity rates in America would double, type 2 diabetes rates would explode, and the food industry would post record profits year after year. Many of the brands complicit became household words even to this day. No warning labels were added. No public health campaigns were launched. No regulatory agency stepped in to limit the amount of sugar that could be added to foods marketed to children. The science existed, the data was published, and the regulatory system, yeah, of course they failed to act. In the 1980s, when crack cocaine was destroying communities, the government declared a war on drugs. They passed laws, they built prisons, they launched public service campaigns. They told America that crack was a threat to our national security. Sugar has contributed to the destruction of more American lives than most people will ever realize. While crack cocaine devastated communities, excessive sugar consumption has silently fueled a nationwide epidemic, hiding in plain sight inside everyday foods, drinks, sauces, cereals, and processed snacks. Cardiovascular disease, heavily linked to obesity, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and excessive added sugar intake, now kills more than 919,000 Americans every single year, making it the leading cause of death in the United States. More than 37 million Americans are currently living with type 2 diabetes, while over 100 million adults in the United States are classified as obese, conditions deeply connected to years of ultra-processed, sugar-loaded diets. Researchers now estimate sugary beverages contribute to approximately 2,200,000 new type 2 diabetes cases and 1,200,000 new cardiovascular disease cases globally every single year. Yet despite these numbers, sugar continues to be marketed to American families, to parents and to our children, hidden behind dozens of ingredient names, and consumed daily by millions who literally have no idea how heavily it impacts the human body and their health. And yet, there is no war on sugar. There are no warning labels, no state of emergency. There are no public service campaigns telling parents that the juice box they are handing their child activates the same dopamine pathway in their child's brain that cocaine would. There are no mandatory minimums for the executives or scientists who knowingly engineer addictive food products and market them to children. The crack epidemic destroyed communities for a decade. The sugar epidemic has been destroying communities for 50 years counting. The only difference is that one was criminalized and the other, it was commercialized. How does this connect to everything the Metabolic Files has been investigating from the very first episode? Your blood is not permanent. Your bone marrow produces roughly 200 billion new red blood cells every single day. Every red blood cell inside your body lives for about 120 days, then dies and is replaced. In 4 months, the blood circulating through your entire body right now will be completely gone. That's right. Every red blood cell you have will be replaced with new ones. When your bloodstream becomes overloaded with sugar, glucose molecules begin attaching themselves to your hemoglobin inside red blood cells. This process is called glycation. It is literally what the A1C test measures at your doctor's office, the percentage of your blood cells that have been damaged and bonded to sugar. But most people never realize what that actually means. Healthy red blood cells are soft, flexible, and smooth. They are designed to squeeze through the tiniest microscopic vessels in the human body, delivering oxygen and nutrients to every organ, nerve, tissue, and cell. But once those cells become glycated, they begin to harden. They become stiff, sticky, less flexible. Instead of flowing smoothly through the microcirculation, they begin struggling to pass through the smallest blood vessels in your body. The vessels feeding your eyes, kidneys, fingers, toes, heart, and brain. This is why diabetes destroys vision. This is why it causes kidney failure. This is why people lose feeling in their hands and feet. This is why neuropathy develops. This is why circulation dies in the extremities. This is why amputations happen. The sugar is not just in the blood. The sugar is damaging the very blood cells responsible for keeping you alive. And once those damaged cells can no longer deliver oxygen properly, the tissues they are supposed to nourish slowly begin to suffocate. Your body is literally starving at the cellular level while being overfed at the same time. Red blood cells live for approximately 120 days. Then the cycle begins again as your body creates a completely new supply of blood cells. But if the sugar never stops pouring in, the new cells become damaged before they ever have the opportunity to function the way they were designed to. However, that same 120-day cycle also reveals something extraordinary. The body can rebuild. If you change what enters your body, if you support the microcirculation, if you nourish the blood with the right nutrients, antioxidants, minerals, and plant compounds, then the next generation of blood cells is built differently. Cleaner blood, healthier cells, better oxygen delivery, improved circulation, greater flexibility inside the vessels that sustain human life. The body does not hold grudges. It rebuilds itself from whatever materials it is consistently given. That is not motivation. That is not marketing. That is biology. And it is the reason this channel exists. If this investigation changed how you see the sugar in your kitchen, share it with someone who is battling sugar cravings right now. Share it with someone who has an uncontrollable sweet tooth. Share it with a parent who is packing their child's lunchbox this week. This video might save their lives. That is not an exaggeration. The published science says sugar is killing more Americans than any illegal drug in history, and most of them have no idea it is happening. Every source cited in this episode is linked in the description. Dr. Robert Lustig's sugar science research is available in the description. PLOS One's rat study on sugar versus cocaine reward is also linked in the description. The brain scan comparisons are documented in translational psychiatry and neuroscience. Every fact, every number, every claim is verifiable. Read them. That is the entire point. This channel is not operated by a medical professional. Nothing presented constitutes medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All information comes from published, peer-reviewed research and documented historical records. Consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet or health. Believe nothing. Question everything. The truth is out there. I will see you in the next file.